Hey everybody, this is James. So I have, I don't know if this will help everybody or not, but I got an email from a therapist and she asked some really good questions. And they were such good questions that it ended up that I didn't feel like I could answer them in an email. So I went ahead and called her, or she called me, and we kind of talked about it and stuff. But the questions were such that I thought, you know what, I'm going to just try to do a little video on them and put them out there, and then you can either follow up with me or follow up with your doctor. But these are some serious questions that, as a therapist, I think every single one of us, somewhere in the timeline of our lives, is going to come across them, okay? So, question number one. Has a diagnosis of a patient ever come across your desk that completely overwhelms you? Well, yes. I mean, from the very beginning, you really have to remember there's nothing that kind of prepares us to be a therapist, right? It's not like we've had a job in the past that got us to be ready for this job. And when we really start to understand what vision therapy is and all the aspect of the neurology of it, the mechanics of it, how the input is going to really affect this person's life, it can become overwhelming. It can become like, what do I do? Then, as a new therapist, if you ever get into a situation like some clinics, they have multiple therapists, and so maybe they have a therapist that has been there for a number of years, and so a really hard case comes in and it goes to those experienced individuals. Or you may be at a small clinic that it doesn't matter because everyone is going to come to you. In my short career, when I first started, one of my very first patients, and my doctor is great, Dr. Winters, and he said, James, I'm not really sure what we're going to be doing. He was very hands-on with me and helped me through it. But I actually had an individual who was a quadriplegic. He was one of two individuals in the history of the United States that are considered the most injured war veterans. And he's passed away now, but he was blown up by an IUD in Iraq. The state of Washington considered him a vegetable, but his parents were fighting for viability, and so they actually sent him to our clinic to where we could prove that there was, his first name was Evan, and I have permission from his mom to share that. But that he was trapped in his own body. That's what we were trying to do. And I can tell you, it was way overwhelming. I mean, the only movements that he could make at first was he'd blink once for yes and twice for no. But even that was such a cognitive load for him that sometimes he would just answer one or two questions and then fall asleep, okay? So that was a very overwhelming, what do I do with this individual? I also had a patient that he was a track athlete. He was a long distance runner. Unfortunately, at a track meet at the University of Washington, he was attacked in the parking lot by individuals. They pretty much left him for dead. They attacked him with baseball bats. And his journey even to get to me was lots of rehab, lots of surgeries. But when he got to me, he had a window of vision that was about 8 inches high and about 12 to 8 inches wide. It was like looking out of a shoebox. Anything outside of that was just dark, okay? Just what we'd call field neglect. Like he just couldn't see anything in that. And so that, again, was an overwhelming diagnosis. I've also worked with some severe autistic patients, and we're going to get to that in just a second. So, yes, there are times where you're going to have things that are just way over our comfort zone. So the second part of the question, what have you done to work through that? Number one, remember they're not your patient, okay? They're the doctor's patient. So you have the ability to go to your doctor and just ask, I don't know what to do. What do you want me to do? How do I work through this? And so that you can feel like you have that support and that confidence that you're just facilitating what the doctor has planned for this patient, okay? Second is, whatever patient I come across, I try to go back and picture them as a little child. Picture them as a baby that is developing. So whether it's a traumatic injury like these two young men that went through, that everything was going fine and then all of a sudden they find themselves in this situation, or something that happened in their childhood or in the developmental aspect, and then I begin to break down and say, you know what? I don't have to jump from where they're at all the way to the perfect visual system in one mighty leap, okay? I can take little tiny steps each and every day that I'm working with them. So with Evan, the very first thing that we did was just prism jumps. You know, just noticeable differences. I had to find out, could he tell the difference of when something was here versus a prism entering in and now it's shifted. And so just starting with just basic, go back to what is our training. We use gross peripheral, red green luster, you know, all these different things, and work the system, work the protocols that you already have in place. It's not always that you have these really high complicated case and so therefore you got to come up with some brand new thing to do. Work what you already know, stay with your strengths, and then as you go through, then things will kind of work out. So anyway, I thought that was a great question. And yes, there's times that things are overwhelming. I just got called not too long ago to a clinic to come in and help work with a little boy. He was born, or at least had a blastoma, to where he had a growth that caused his retina not to form. So on the back of the eye, instead of there being a complete retina, there's like a little chunk that was out of it. So it's just not even formed. You could see it on the retinal scales. But we went in together with the doctor and the therapist there, great team in that clinic. We just started doing our basic thing, red green luster, okay? And as he was doing red green luster, all of a sudden he went from alternating to split field to fusion, okay? So being able to see that fusion in. So even though that area wasn't already formed, there was enough cells, okay? There was enough receptors around the edges of that had developed that the brain was able to make a complete field and be able to blend that in. So keep doing what you know to do, then ask your doctor and then reach out from beyond them, okay? The second question, is it common or normal for therapists to want to avert working with patients with certain diagnosis? Okay, examples that they gave: autism, extreme autism, sensory, Down syndrome, and that was just a few examples. And you have to remember, every one of us, we are human, okay? We do have either preferences or maybe even kind of fears and anxieties, okay? I can only relate to myself because that's what I remember, but I remember about 5 years of age, we went to a nursing home and we are going to help entertain and encourage these older people in their wheelchairs. And we walked through the door, and I was always kind of a small kid, and there was a lady, she was there, and she had all these stuffed animals that were around her. And as we went by, we were shaking hands, and I reached out and I shook my hand, and she latched onto my hand and she grabbed me and pulled me in, and she started trying to shove me down in with her stuffed animals. And at 5 years of age, I was screaming, I was crying, and I just wanted out of there, right? And from that, for a long time, anybody that was in a wheelchair, I was a little bit scared of. And then at school, we had a young boy. He was a little bit older than most of us, but he had some severe mental, looking back on it, he had some severe mental delayed issues. But the problem was he was very violent, okay? And he was didn't know his own strength, and as a kid we thought he was mean. But he really, I'm looking back now, he didn't understand. I can get that. But he kind of traumatized us kids, because if we got close, he would pinch us or he would hit us. And so for a long time, I struggled with that demographic, okay? Now, it's fascinating to me, as I've learned and as I've studied and as I've gotten the privilege to work with some of these diagnoses, how I'm drawn to them. Going through a grocery store or in an airport, I do a lot of traveling, and they're different individuals that I seek them out to try to interact and to find out what's going on within their world and within their mind and within there. So yes, there's going to be some times that you're going to have the proclivity to work with one group over another group. Okay, we have a wonderful therapist that was in our clinic. She had some family members that had some sensory things, some different things going on, and she was excellent working with autistic patients. She could do storyboards, she knew how to reward, she had just a beautiful spirit, just an openness, and she was able to gain that trust with them. And so a lot of times if we had a person that was high needs, we would try to schedule with that therapist. And so if you feel uncomfortable, two things that you can do. One is just be honest with your doctor. Say, hey, this demographic I struggle with. I don't know how to relate. And, work through that. And then if there's somebody in your clinic that already works with that demographic, is say, can I shadow? Can I go over there? Can I watch? Can I learn? Can I interact? And then look through opportunities in your community. You will find that some of these individuals are not only are they just beautiful minds and beautiful people, but they are just looking for somebody that will actually listen to them and take what they are and what they know, and they'll end up teaching us. Okay, many times I've worked with an autistic patient, and what I thought I wanted them to do, well, they did something totally different. It still met the needs of the therapy that I was trying to do, but they were able to teach me a lot. Okay. Then third question, what is the VT world thinking on doing vision therapy on your own family, and even if they're not children? Okay. So my wife is a piano player. She's a classical piano player. She's a teacher and everything else. And we kind of made it a policy that we would not have my wife teach our kids to play the piano, because it seems like whenever adults or parents try to teach kids something, it just adds conflict, or it becomes just normalized. Okay, so when my children took vision therapy, I purposely made sure that they were with a different therapist. But at the same time, from the time my kids were little, I was doing vision therapy activities with them at home, trying to introduce, the different concepts, all the different things that we can do with them. So I'm not opposed. If I was the only therapist, then yes, I would definitely have done vision therapy with my children. And with family members, like I've had nieces and nephews, my mother-in-law has done vision therapy, different ones. I would do it personally until I thought, is there a conflict of interest, or is there too much familiarity to where that the therapist relationship, they're not getting as much out of it as they should. Okay, so I don't know if that helps, but everybody, it's what you're comfortable with. Also, you need to check with your doctor. So your doctor may have a policy saying, nope, I don't want family members working with family members. Okay, they want that line of demarcation. Okay, so you may want to check with them, make sure that's how they want to set it up. But personally, I don't see if there's any problem with it. Then the very last question, and this is kind of a big one: have you ever felt like a fraud? Okay, so as a vision therapist, especially when you're brand new, okay, you come in and you get all this information and you're trying to learn it, and you're trying to learn it on the job, and then all of a sudden you have patients and you're pulling out little things, trying to put together a therapy program or what you're going to do with that patient, and you're doing the very best that you can, and all of a sudden either mom, or if the patient's older, they ask you a question and it's like deer in the headlights, like and you just don't know what to say. Okay, it is always okay to say, you know what, that's a very good question, let me get back with you. Okay, I want to go over these home activities, but next week when you get back, I'll have an answer for you. Okay, that at least pushes it off, gives you a chance to go talk to your doctor, talk to other therapists, or try to find out the answer. But there are some times where, as I've gotten into this and as I've trained other people, I remember we had a young therapist, a young lady, beautiful, I mean, just a great therapist, but very conscientious, okay? And so she struggled with that feeling of, am I really qualified to be doing this? And I tried to explain to it this way. She had been with us at least 90 days. I think it had been even more than that. She had gone through our training. I had trained her. Our other lead therapist had trained her. I said, right now, you probably have more understanding of the visual system than 90% of the entire town, city that we're in, okay? So have the confidence that you kind of know more than most anybody else that they could go to for an answer, okay? So that's not to like puff us up or anything like that. But I told her, this is what I want you to do. I want you to fake it till you make it, okay? Now, don't take me wrong. I'm not saying that we fake what we know or we fake anything, but take what you have, and even if within yourself you think, oh man, I'm not at this level that I think that I need to be qualified to do the job that I'm doing, know, hey, I do know this. I may not know A through Z, but I at least know A, B, C, D, and E, right? And so just be confident that I can answer this question, okay? And if it comes up that there's a question that I can't answer, I can at least tell them, hey, you know what? Every patient's different. We're working with the brain. We're trying to get neuromuscular coordination. It's more about the action that the patient does than it is the activity that we present, so how they learn it. And if they stump you with a question, we're all human, right? We don't guarantee that we're going to know everything at all times. And so just be able to say, you know what? I will find out. I will ask the doctor, or I will research this, or I'll try to come up with something. If it can't wait till next week, I'll give you a phone call or I'll email you the answer. But we're going to learn through this together. So anyway, those are some pretty big questions. Those are some pretty good talking points that you can have within your own clinic. Or if you have a situation that you want to talk about and your doctor's fine with it, you can always give me a call. But just remember, we're there to serve. So however it is, whether it's something that overwhelms you or something that you're just not comfortable with or something that you feel like I'm just not adequate, just take a deep breath, communicate with your doctor, communicate with the other people that you work with if you can, and then just be confident, I'm going to do my best to help this individual, and by doing that, you'll find that these things will get easier and easier over time. All right? I know it's a little bit long, but I hope that it helps to answer some of these questions. And until next time we get to talk, God bless you and have a great day.